Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Ron's Talking. My name is Ron Tucker. I'm the host of the show. I want to thank you for taking the time to take a look at my channel. And please don't forget, if you're willing to subscribe to my channel. I'm always trying to bring information, bringing the truth to the best of my ability as I see it. The majority of the things I say on my show are my opinion and my opinion only. There are times when I will take excerpts from other learned individuals, colleagues, other content creators, and just want to disseminate and spread the word and make sure the word is what's going on out there today, things that can help us understand why we're in the situation we're in right now with this new government coming in January 20th. You all know who I'm talking about, I'm sure. One Donald J. Trump. I think that America is in for a rude awakening, but at the same time, it's not unlike we didn't already understand who we were dealing with, but for some odd, strange, crazy reason, Americans decided to vote this convicted felon back in office again. It's almost impossible to understand the logic and why America would vote against its own best interests as a country. We all have our theories, and we all have our uh, reasons, we all have our opinions about why. Why did America decide to put what I consider one of the most incompetent individuals that's ever been in the White House? This country was founded in a way that a lot of minorities like myself, we understand the history, and we know that a lot of legislators around the country, especially Republicans, don't want their grandkids and the kids that's going to be coming behind them to know the horrible atrocities that were committed in the early beginnings of our country and carried on until the late 60s and 70s and still going on today. Not at the same level as in the past, but nevertheless, racism still exists in our country in so many different ways. So, something that we can look at it from an idealistic standpoint and a pie in the sky type of thought process. We can hope, dream, and pray, but racism will never go away. It's something that's baked into our DNA, it's embedded in our history. It will forever be around because there are too many people that practice racism on a daily basis. It's just what they're made of, it's what they are. They can't see themselves as being anything other than hateful individuals who want to despise other people because they are not the same color as they are. It's a sickness, in my opinion, a disease that's contagious. You can see it from the people who practice those type of behaviors and exhibit those actions and attitudes all over the country and all over the world. You can call them Karens, you can call them Kens, you can call them anything you want, but they're there. They're out there. And now we're about to embark upon uh, Donald Trump 2.0. I don't know what this new edition is going to look like, and no one else does, but we have a pretty good idea. It's going to probably be worse than the first because if it's worse than the first, it's going to be pretty damn bad. So we're gonna handle ourselves. We're gonna deal with it. A lot of us are already braced for it. Oh, before I go any further and forget my manners, um, I better give a shout out to my sidekick up here, Donald Trump. I'm sorry. Hey, don't get all excited. Don't get upset. It was a Freudian slip. My bad. Uh, his name is Donald the Clown, and I didn't mean to call him Trump. But he just cussed me out because he talks to me all the time. Uh, Basically, just now, just told me to get my shit straight. So, he's got thin skin, so he can't handle anything that is slightly amiss, and you know, I'll deal with him after the show. Anyway, let me get back on track. Donald Trump and his reemergence as president of the United States in January of 2025 most likely is going to set off a chain reaction of events that's probably going to slowly take effect. A lot of his campaign promises that are on paper destructive in nature, I feel like it's going to take a while. It's going to take time. He said everything that he needed to say to try to get reelected by basically doing what he does best, which is lying to the people. And he accomplished that mission. He got over again on the American public, the ones who voted for him, because the man admitted and talked about in 1998, I've said this before in one of my previous videos, that he said to People magazine that if he was going to run for president back then, he'd run as a Republican, because he said the Republicans are the dumbest people in the world. Now I'm paraphrasing, but basically that's what the man said. He said they were dumb. And in other words, he knew they would fall for anything. And he's proven that right twice now. So here we go. But one thing about Donald Trump that I want to read to people is this comes from the Council of Foreign Relations. I was kind of pulling up some information to see just what was Donald Trump's major accomplishments and what did he actually do that was noteworthy in his first term. And this is an excerpt from, again, the Council on Foreign Relations. And this is what they said. History will judge the Trump presidency to have been a consequential one, but more for its destructive effects than for its achievements. We can finally state with confidence that U.S. President Donald Trump will leave the White House, however reluctantly, on January 20th. Now remember, this is back in 2021. As his 4 years in office come to an end, it is not too soon to raise the question of how he will be viewed. History will judge Trump to have been a consequential U.S. president in that he left America and the world much changed. He will also be seen as one of the worst, if not the worst ever. True, Trump did accomplish some useful things. Domestically, he pushed policies, a cut to the too high corporate tax rate, the easing of some overly burdensome regulations that appear to have contributed to a robust economic growth. In foreign policy, he deserves credit for moving the U.S. policy vis-a-vis an increasingly repressive, powerful, and assertive China in a more sober, critical direction. He was also right to provide defensive arms to Ukraine, given that part of that country is under Russian occupation. But remember what he tried to do to Ukraine, which caused him to get impeached. But I'll move on. Negotiating a new trade pact with Mexico and Canada and then persuading Congress to approve it was a significant achievement, even if the improvement over the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, was modest, and important parts of the new accord were taken from the text of the far bigger Trans-Pacific Partnership that Trump unwisely rejected. The United States also played a valuable role in facilitating the normalization of ties between Israel and several of its Arab neighbors, notwithstanding its failure to make any headway on the Palestinian issue. But these and any other accomplishments are dwarfed by what Trump got wrong. 3 failures in particular stand out. The first is the damage he has done to American democracy. No kidding. We see this now even more vividly. The events of January 6, 2021, when a mob of Trump supporters besieged and occupied the U.S. Capitol, were the culmination of the president's efforts to demonize the media, violate established norms, promote lies, question the authority of the courts, and reject the results of a presidential election that passed every serious test of its legitimacy. Trump's incitement and instigation of unlawful activity and violence was the final straw. To be sure, not all the blame here lies with Trump, because no one forced so many Republican office holders to follow his lead in seeking to undermine the legitimacy of President-elect Joe Biden's victory. Those who enable Trump through their political and financial support share responsibility for his sustained assault on the restraints that are critical to the functioning of any democratic system. Nonetheless, what distinguishes this incident of American populism from previous episodes is that it was engineered from the Oval Office rather from the outside. The second defining issue is COVID-19. The coronavirus outbreak and subsequent spread were China's failure, but Trump's inept and inadequate response is what explains why 400,000 Americans will have died from the disease by the time he leaves office. The flawed U.S. response also caused millions of jobs and businesses to disappear, some permanently, millions of students to fall behind, and governments and people around the world to lose respect for America. There was much that the Trump administration could and should have done to deal with the coronavirus. Although it deserves credit for its role in accelerating the development of COVID-19 vaccines, this accomplishment was partly undermined by the failure to arrange for their efficient delivery. The administration also failed to offer consistent messaging on the need for face masks, nor did it ensure that medical personnel had adequate protective gear or provide essential federal support for the development of effective, efficient tests. The contrast with the relatively successful response of Taiwan, Australia, New England, Germany, Vietnam, and China underscores that a viral outbreak need not have led to a pandemic, and certainly not to one on the scale experienced in the U.S. Ironically, Trump apparently feared that prioritizing the fight against COVID-19 would weaken the economy and doom his re-election chances, when in fact it was his failure to rise to the challenge that probably did him in. Trump's third legacy-defining failure was a foreign policy that undermined America's position in the world. In part, this outcome owes something to the reasons described above: his assault on democracy and failure to deal effectively with COVID-19. But Trump's foreign policy also failed on its own grounds. North Korea added to its nuclear stockpile and built more and better missiles despite Trump's personal diplomacy with Kim Jong-un. You know, his lover, that Melania, well, she knows about it now. Iran reduced the time it would need to develop nuclear weapons following the Trump administration's unilateral exit from the 2015 nuclear pact called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Venezuela's dictatorship is more entrenched now, and Russia, Syria, and Iran increased their influence across the Middle East after America withdrew troops and support for the local partners. More broadly, the U.S. withdrawal from international agreements and institutions became the hallmark of Trump's foreign policy, as did his criticism of Americans, European, and Asian allies, coziness with authoritarian leaders, and disregard of human rights violations. The net result has been a reduction of U.S. influence on the world stage. Trump inherited a set of relationships, alliances, and institutions that, however imperfect, had for 75 years created a context in which great power conflict had been avoided, democracy expanded, and wealth and living standards increased. In other words, President Barack Obama handed the baton over to Trump, and he had a stable economy, he had world leadership still intact, and we were still known as the country that other countries wanted to emulate. And we know the rest of the story of what Trump did to damage all that. Okay. So, embracing a blend of America First nationalism, unilateralism, and isolationism, Trump did what he could to disrupt many of these relationships and arrangements without putting anything better in their place. It would be difficult, if not impossible, to repair this damage anytime soon. Trump will no longer be president. Remember, this was written before we woke up to Nightmare 2.0. But he will remain influential in the Republican Party and the country. While the world was already in growing disarray and while U.S. influence was already declining, Trump dramatically accelerated both trends. The bottom line is that he is handing off a country and a world in far worse condition than he inherited. That is his distressing legacy. Folks, I've said it I don't know how many times. Donald Trump is an embarrassment. He is totally incompetent. He's corrupt. Everything that a president shouldn't be, he is. And now, here it is, 2024, going into 2025, and here he comes again with all of these asinine, crazy nominations of people who the majority of them should not have even been mentioned for a position. In anybody else's cabinet, the vast majority of them would never have been even thought upon or even considered. But Donald Trump, being the criminal mind that he is, he decided to just line his cabinet up. He doesn't want any FBI background checks for obvious reasons. He doesn't want the Senate to have to go through a confirmation process for his nominees for obvious reasons. And therefore, what is one to think of the kind of cabinet he's putting together? It's like he's just grabbing people because of their supposed loyalty to him and the nice things they've said about him, and he's just sticking people in like pegs in a hole without even trying to find out whether they fit or not, because he doesn't really care. Trump got back into this office of the presidency based on a number of factors. I don't have to go through all of them, but one of them to me is glaring, and that was Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, his ineptitude and his dragging his feet that allowed Trump to rush up there and get himself announced as he's going to run for president again. Merrick Garland could have stopped this 2 years ago if he had been doing his job properly. But he's going to wait until the midnight hour to appoint a special counsel to investigate all this stuff that Trump had been doing, including the classified documents in Mar-a-Lago. It was just befuddling. And Garland just kind of dawdled around and drug his feet and he just watched Trump do his thing. And now, here we are. And they could talk about how Kamala Harris didn't do this and didn't do that during her campaign. She had an abbreviated campaign that handicapped her and would have handicapped anybody in that situation. And she still, for the limited compressed time that she ran, she did a brilliant job with what she had to work with. Okay? But based on and due to the misogynistic nature of men overall in this country, they could not see a female, and hell no, not a black female, be in charge of this country. Hell, they wouldn't even give the white lady a shot. Hillary Clinton, they did everything they could to make sure that she didn't become president. Men, in general, just can't see and fathom having a woman at the top of the helm. Just the way it is, folks. You can slice it or dice it any way you want, but that's the way it is. And so we look at all these crazy cabinet picks. Pete Hegseth coming off of Fox News as Secretary of Defense. What's he ever led from a combat perspective and a military perspective as far as overseeing one of the largest institutions in the world from a defense standpoint? You got to be crazy. Matt Gaetz, he was even nominated And he dropped out because it only made sense for him to do that. But what was nuts is that Trump was going to try to pick him to be an agent. Man, okay, I know he's gone, but it still blows my mind that they would even try that shit with him. And now you got these other clowns that Trump is sticking in left and right. Robert Kennedy Jr. This gravel voice ignoramus, brain already ate up and chewed up by some kind of worm or whatever. He makes no sense for the most part about anything, and he's going to put him in charge of Health and Human Services. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Trump is just grabbing people off the streets, basically, just throwing them in slots. It's just insanity. Insanity. Let me see. Who else? Because the list is so stupid and so crazy, I can't even keep up with most of them. But Kristi Noem, I'm going to get to her in a minute. Homeland Security Secretary. Oh, my God. Come on now. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard. She's basically a spy. She's going to be Director of National Intelligence. See, it's almost like everybody that has no business being in a position and have undermined and demeaned and talked about some of those positions that they're going to be, or at least trying to get nominated for, Trump's trying to put them in. And almost all of them, to a person, has got no experience in those positions. And the ones who do have some experience, they're just hired guns. They just been brought on board to do Trump's bidding and go after his enemies and all that kind of stuff. And this guy, Tom Homan, he is a former acting ICE director. Of course, Trump wants him in that position because he was one of the architects of all the horrible things that Trump and ICE did the first time Trump was in, separating children from their parents and stuff. Now they done put a new slant on that. Oh, we ain't gonna separate the kids from the parents this time. Hell, we're gonna deport all of them, send them all back in one package deal. So you can't say they were separated. And these idiots don't care whether some of these people they trying to deport are U.S. citizens or not. So if you're a U.S. citizen, it still don't mean that you're a citizen. Because if you speak Spanish, or if you got somebody in your family that's illegal, or we can determine that there's something shaky about you, or we don't like you, or whatever the criteria is going to be, we're going to try to send you back. But what they're going to have a problem with is the logistics of everything. See, they ain't thought that out through their Project 2025 plan, but when it starts butting heads with the law and all these lawsuits start bogging everything down, and things start slowing down to a halt, and then you're going to see all kind of pandemonium and chaos and stuff out there on the streets, and the news is just going to be all about Trump, just like it is now, but to a whole new level after January 20th. It's going to be that veritable, what we call it, a shit show on a grand scale. Get ready for it, folks, because it's coming to your town soon. So, a couple of Trump's latest nominations, I just want to go over real briefly, if I could. Any of you folks remember this guy named Matt Whitaker? If you don't, let me tell you a little bit about him. I think a lot of times people's memories are short from a few years ago. Hell, some people can't remember things from yesterday. I might be including that once in a while, you know what I'm saying? But hey, I digress. Matt Whitaker, he's been tabbed by Trump to be our ambassador to NATO. Now, Whitaker at one point was selected by Trump to be the acting AG when Trump's little empire, his dictatorship, was crumbling around 2018, 2019. He was already in trouble, and the wheels were coming off the skateboard he was on. So all kind of mess was going on legally, and so Trump brought old Whitaker in, and that's how he got his notoriety when he got his butt bounced out as acting AG. But anyway, back to this NATO ambassadorship. Question is, how much experience does Matt Whitaker have being a diplomat? What'd you say? Oh, you want to guess? Go ahead. What? 0. You be about right. I knew you were kind of smart. You're a clown. None. No experience, and no experience necessary. Okay. What kind of foreign policy experience does Mr. Whitaker have? None. And since NATO is kind of tied to military operations and whatnot, anybody want to take a guess how much military experience Matt Whitaker's got? 0. Now, what he does have, he played football at the University of Iowa. Excuse me. He was a tight end for the Hawkeyes. He went to law school, I assume. But he also lied about being an academic All-American. Now, isn't that interesting? Now, why doesn't a individual who tells lies and they're connected with Trump, why doesn't that not make sense? I seem like that's a prerequisite for anybody dealing with Trump. He sent a fraudulent resume to some old scam company he was trying to get hooked up with, and that company went down the tubes, of course. And also, Mr. Whitaker sat on the board of a company that was shut down because it was defrauding customers, and they were fined $26 million. Now, I always said one of the requisite skills and attributes you needed to work with Trump was to be crooked. So Mr. Whitaker fits that bill. Now, at one point, he was a AG in the state of Iowa, and he tried to prosecute the state's first and only openly gay senator. Of course, he failed miserably at that task because he didn't have no evidence whatsoever. They said it took the jury about less than 90 minutes to come back with a verdict, and 30 minutes of that 90 minutes was when they went to lunch. So there you go with that. But when Mr. Whitaker, when he became a paid commentator with CNN, he started talking all this trash about what he thought about Trump, and he was really giving Trump all his props, and he was also reportedly was trying to advise the Trump administration on how to hang and prosecute Hillary Clinton. You're hired. That's all it took. That's all Trump needed to hear. So now, here comes the liar in chief, though, of Donald Trump. Just to show you how much of a blatant lie he's always been. 2 days after Trump nominated Whitaker for the acting AG position, and that was on November the 7th, 2018. Now, if you can count and master your strong suit, on on the 9th, and I remember I said Trump nominated him on the 7th of November, 2018. 2 days later, on the 9th of November, Trump claimed to a reporter out there on the lawn of the White House he didn't know who Matt Whitaker was. I don't know. Maybe Trump just had a mental breakdown, mental lapse. He nominated a guy 2 days prior, and then 2 days later he said he didn't know him. And you know what? From my recollection, hardly no one batted an eye. Because it's Donald Trump. And we so used to Trump lying, I guess it didn't make any difference. Just like today. He's told over 30,000 lies just during his first term in office. I'm not talking about the 4 years since 2020, how he's been lying all the way up to now. Just a walking lie machine. Now, why would Trump say he don't know somebody that he nominated? It's a rhetorical question again. Okay, kind of reminiscent of when he was asked a question about that $30,000 on the Stormy Daniels deal when he was on Air Force One. The reporter asked him about it. I think the reporter asked Trump, did he know anything about the money? Trump turned and looked at her. No. Just like water rolling off his tongue. It's easy for him. Okay? A born liar. So, I'm going to move on from Whitaker. The next person really intrigues me. Some of y'all might know who she is. She's that puppy killer from South Dakota, former Governor Kristi Noem. Now, since Trump carefully selected the pride of South Dakota and Miss Noem, she's famous for a number of things now. But one of the things she was famous for, at least in my estimation, when the news hit the airwaves and the papers and everything, that a few years ago, her daughter was too ignorant and too dumb to pass the real estate appraisal licensing examination. So here comes Mama Bear, the governor. She got hot and wanted to know, how come some of you administrators and the people who hand out these exams to be tested for the real estate appraisal license? The governor wanted to know, how come her daughter's too stupid to pass the test? But she wants to know, when y'all gonna hook her up? Because I need to get her on a payroll, I guess, to get her off my neck. So she summoned, let me see, who did she bring in? She called in the legal counsel for the state, the labor board, labor secretary, the real estate licensing board people. She brought in her own chief counsel, her chief of staff. Hell, I believe she even contacted Mary McCheese and tried to get him on the line so he can weigh in. All hands on deck. And, they all showed up because they didn't want to end up like her puppy Cricket or her goat. I don't know the goat's name. His name was probably Buckets because he kicked a bucket after she loaded both of them up with some lead. And it's a shame that since she turned to Annie Oakley and wanted to shoot up everybody and put a cap in her animals, she's so mentally disturbed that she admitted all of the things that she did to those animals in her autobiography and has not to this day shared any regrets. You have to be a special type of person to have that type of mentality to kill a 14-month-old puppy. And she claims she killed Cricket's, her dog, because Cricket was chasing chickens and maybe killed a chicken or two. My question is, you the governor of South Dakota, and you've been known to grift and steal and everything else. You mean tell me you couldn't coerce some of those laborers in your state to build you a damn fence for your dog? What about the goat? What did the goat do? Ate too much grass out of your yard? Why would you even have animals when you don't know how to care for them? Sick. Just sick. And the people of South Dakota, y'all just as sick as she is because y'all put her in office. And now this demented, soon to be president, he's going to put her in as the head of Homeland Security. Remember, in Trump's first term, hell, he went through 6 Homeland Security people. You know, he's a genius when it comes to staff management. That's one of his strong suits, if he told you. And if you think I'm trying to bash Kristi Noem without any kind of corroborating evidence, and you think I'm just calling her a crook and a thief for no reason, I ain't done with it yet. Last but not least, she's was the governor of South Dakota. How should I say this? Man, don't be rushing me. Hey, look, I told you this is my show. Hey, I'm moving at my pace. You don't be telling me how fast it's gonna get on with it. Just shut up. Or I cut off them damn strings on that balloon. You ain't nothing but a squatter anyway. You don't do nothing here but hang around and make noise. Man, yeah, hopefully I can get rid of your ass legally soon. But anyway, you're governor of your own state. She starts doing commercials for a dentist in the state of Texas and has all kind of clips and shots and screenshots and video of her mouth being examined and showing off all of her pearly whites. I'm thinking, so all your dentists in your state, they suck? They're incompetent? They don't know how to do their jobs as dentists? And you're going to do a commercial for another dentist in another state? Folks, I ain't smart, but I'm not that dumb either. I'm just trying to understand. Most people do things for a reason. And a lot of times when people do things, they expect to be compensated. And I don't think it will be beyond Kristi Noem's abilities and thought process not to see about her getting compensated for her efforts. I don't know if she was given free treatment or was she given some kind of financial reward or compensation for what she was doing? And why would she do that for another dentist in another state other than her own? Somebody please tell me. Somebody help me out. Oh, wait. Does that make any sense to anybody? And then they did an investigation and came back with a report. These people sent South Dakota and said, in fact, they found that she did do some things that were improper. And she was guilty of some things that were improper. Um, that was back in March. I ain't heard nothing since. And really haven't heard anything about that situation with her daughter. And I think they did an investigation on that. Ain't heard nothing about it. I wonder how well her daughter's doing in the real estate world. You talking about privilege and power and how it's being wielded. Folks, I don't know what's happened to America. Ever since Trump showed up on the scene, it's been nothing but chaos, division, rampant racism, uh, so-called politicians who are now bending their knees, just like ABC has already capitulated to Trump as well and has settled with him on his crazy ass frivolous lawsuit about George Stephanopoulos claiming that Trump raped E. Jean Carroll, and the judges or the judge, the main judge, indicated that he in fact did do that. And so Trump wants to go after Stephanopoulos. I'm thinking, why don't you go after that judge who indicated that you did in fact rape this lady? ABC would not have lost that case if they had gone to trial, and it would have necessitated Trump to go through the discovery phase, which I know he didn't want to do. But somehow, for some crazy, unknown reason, unbeknownst to us regular folks, ABC decided to go ahead and settle for 15 mil to Trump's presidential library. It doesn't even exist. I can just about tell you where that 15 million is going. Where it's going to end up, if it ever gets there. Now, they could drag this thing out for a while before they have to pay up or whatever, but it sends a bad signal to the rest of the media and the country as well. And it gives Trump another little bit of air of invincibility. Now, he can get away with anything and everything, which he pretty much has done so far. But he ain't out the woods yet. There's a lot of stuff hanging on his head. So, I mean, but this didn't look good. To me, it stinks. You know, other than that debacle with MSNBC and Mika and Joe, I don't know where we're going next. Which media enterprise is going to fall next and bow down and kiss Trump's ring or his ass, whichever they prefer. They might do both. But I'm gonna leave it at that, folks. That's all I got to say for right now. Just want to try to get caught up on things. And last but not least, I ain't forgotten about the murderer that killed that CEO from United Healthcare. I never gave much of a take on it, but my opinion is this. Yes, there are a lot of underlying reasons and factors, if you will, to why people would hate the insurance companies. They've been getting away with, no pun intended, but murder for decades and decades. And there's been so many people that have been victimized and have lost their lives because of the policies and the way these insurance companies operate. But it still doesn't excuse murder. And then you got people supporting this murderer. I understand he might have had a beef with them or something like that, but hell, I've got a beef with a lot of people in a lot of professions, just like so many other Americans have a beef with doctors, attorneys, judges, anybody or anything. But that doesn't give you the right to take somebody's life. And then you got these crazy Americans, just like the crazy ones that put Trump in office, the same mentality of the herds out there that don't give a damn about humanity, about being humane, moral, integrity, all that stuff is flown out the window. Because social media has all these crackpots and zealots and knuckleheads and idiots out there that, oh, it's okay for him to shoot somebody in the back multiple times, oh, because he's hot. And you get the crazy ass chicks out there, maybe a few guys too, who want to fawn over this guy because of his looks. The fucking people are crazy in this country, in this world. People are just crazy. They ain't just lost any kind of semblance of sanity. It, for clicks and going viral and me. That's what it's all turned into. And everybody wants to shine and gain all this kind of notoriety that they don't deserve. Ask the Hawk Tour girl. Anyway, folks, I'm out of here because I'll get myself all worked up. But I shall return with some more thoughts, questions, stories, comments, and just need to keep it going. Need to keep on bringing the truth. Got topics to talk about in the future, so we open. We're gonna stay open. This clown up here, I guess he'll still be hanging around, being the squatter he is. So anyway, for Donald and myself, thank you for taking the time to look at my channel and throw a little subscribe on there for me. And I will talk to you folks later. Have a great day, a great coming week, and I know we look forward to the holidays. So we got to enjoy this one because it's going to be rocky from here on out. So take care, everybody, and God bless you. Later.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.